guy in the NBA should ever wear 23.
I've been working on that shot my whole life, and for that one to go in, that was liberating right there, man.
And I'm not shoving it aside, like it don't mean anything. I know it's important. I do. I honestly do. But we talking about
23 Shots of JD podcast.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the 23 Shots of JD podcast. I don't know. I sort of took a week break. Not really. I didn't take a break. If anyone follows the Twitter account, you saw that I just wanted the last podcast to just get a bit more airtime. An hour and a half podcast. That's one of the longer podcasts I've done. I think it is the longest podcast I found out to be on this show so far. So I just want some people. It is a long time to listen for an hour and a half in a straight sitting. So didn't want to flood people with too much content and stuff like that. Wanted that episode to breathe a little bit, and essentially just wanted people to enjoy it. So I hope you find that episode pretty good. Like, to me, it was one of the more funner ones to record because it just got a bit wild towards the end. But especially with NBA season coming back, and sort of this is the prime 23 Shots of JD timing. This is what the show was really based upon in the NBA and just basketball in general. You'll see the podcast go back to what it sort of was at the start of the year, really keying on some core NBA topics, and I guess that sort of leads me into me announcing that I'm gonna do a small little series called 30 and 10, and basically within a 10-day span right before the start of the season, which is in about 2 weeks, I think, a week and a bit. I'm not entirely sure. I got to double check on that. I really should make sure because the series that really depends on it. But basically, I'm gonna do a pretty thorough, not like a super in-depth breakdown, but a pretty thorough breakdown of every team in the NBA, and I'm gonna do each episode sort of based on my rankings. So basically, the first episode is going to be the 3 worst teams, and the last episode is going to be the 3 best teams, in my opinion. And then obviously all the teams in between are going to fit somewhere. But like I said, basically I'm just going to break down all 30 teams. I might try and get some guests on, especially particular fans in that team, so they can talk about how they see their team and their chances. But yeah, it's gonna be every single day for 10 days, hence why it's called 30 and 10. And it's sort of a bit different. See how it goes on the podcast. I think during that time as well, I don't think I'll post one of these the regular episodes. I think I'll just keep the 10, 30, and 10 series going, and I'll let that be its own thing during that 10-day period. But talking about basketball, there is, even before preseason starts, just a lot of basketball news. I guess one of the most notable ones, I think it happened probably last week, and I guess I didn't get to address it because I didn't put out an episode. But the whole Jimmy Butler situation, it's pretty interesting. Jimmy Butler, initially gets traded. Then I think there's so much optimism with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Obviously, everyone thought they were gonna do really well. Think about it. They had Karl-Anthony Towns, who's arguably a top 5. Not even arguably. He's definitely getting paid like a top 5 center, and he was in the All-Star game. So I was easily. I think he's a top 5 center. You have Andrew Wiggins, who's an up-and-coming forward. Like, my man was averaging like 20 points a game for basically his whole career, even though it's still a very young career. So he's a pretty decent player. And then on top of that, you got Jeff Teague. Jeff Teague was an ex-All-Star. He was playing pretty decent as well. So a very decent squad. And then just to really be the cherry on top, you got Jimmy Butler, perennial All-Star. A USA basketball team member. This guy is a legitimate stud, and he was even an MVP candidate during last season. So you would think that the Minnesota Timberwolves would do better than 8th place. But that being said, beggars can't be choosers, and the Minnesota Timberwolves haven't been in the playoffs before that for like 14, 15 years or something like that. Basically ever since Kevin Garnett left. So they did have a big void and a big hole in regards to them actually having any postseason, not even success, but just having a postseason, So I guess they couldn't really, like I said, they can't really you can't really blame anyone on that team so far. Just for not making it. But yeah, again, so I sort of just dozed off it. The whole Jimmy Butler situation. Yeah, I think the most important thing about the whole Jimmy Butler situation is it's not because of the coach, because I think he respects Tom Thibodeau a lot, and Tom Thibodeau did so much for Jimmy Butler. He got him basically, it was the Minnesota Bulls, not the Minnesota Timberwolves. Like, they got D Rose, they got Taj Gibson, and then they just signed Luol Deng, and apparently there was even rumors that they were going to sign Joakim Noah. So, it really could have been the old school starting five of the Bulls on that Minnesota team. But you could tell that Tom Thibodeau was really trying to do his best to accommodate Jimmy Butler, because even though I guess you could say Karl Anthony Towns is the most important player of the team, or maybe the best player on the team, most important, however you want to phrase it. I feel like, going back on why the MVP is such a interesting award, it's because Jimmy Butler really is the MVP of that team. He is the most valuable player, and like their wins dramatically increased as soon as he got onto the team. Like I said, they made it to the playoffs for the first time in like 14, 15 years. So his value is really, I guess, understated. But Jimmy Butler knows how much he was worth, and not even monetarily, but just towards the team. So you can see why Tom Thibodeau would do so much to try and accommodate him and stuff like that. But I think Jimmy Butler just didn't like the young guys, and I think at least one young guy. He didn't like Andrew Wiggins. He basically said that this guy plays for the paycheck and not for wins or not for the love of the game or anything like that. Like, it's basically calling out the character of Andrew Wiggins, which, to be fair, ever since college and when he was at Kansas, always was getting questioned. Like he had all the athletic ability. He was the next LeBron James. Like, everyone sort of frost at Zion Williamson and just say how much of a high school freak he is. People forget, 2012, 2013, Andrew Wiggins was dubbed the next LeBron James, and he had all the physical capabilities to be LeBron James. Maybe not the bulk on him, but he's 6'7", 6'8". He jumps at the gym. His mum's an ex Canadian Olympics athlete, and his dad's a former basketball player as well. So just genetically, they're both freaks, and so Andrew Wiggins really culminated all that together in his own body. But then he went to Kansas, and he was a marquee guy. And as the season progressed slowly, you sort of saw that Andrew Wiggins naturally regressed in his leadership and really took a secondary role to someone like Joel Embiid. And Joel Embiid started to become the focal point of the team, even though it was meant to be Andrew Wiggins. And like I said, at that point, people started questioning Andrew Wiggins' love of the game, I guess. He was, people say he had that little Tracy McGrady lackadaisical approach, but Tracy McGrady was a gun. He was a straight don. It's just his face and just, I guess, the way he conveyed wasn't really sort of like Kawhi Leonard, actually. Kawhi Leonard, he doesn't really portray like a killer, but everyone knows when you're on the court, this guy is a straight animal. And I think Andrew Wiggins really lacks both of those. He doesn't portray that he's an alpha, and he doesn't really play like an alpha. And even though, like I said, he basically averaged 20 points for his whole NBA career, it really is sort of empty points. I think Jimmy Butler has said he really just plays for the stats. He tries to get the stats up. So his shots and his points, his rebounds, his block, steals, assists, and all that is really just empty calories. His stats are Pepsi Max. It tastes like regular Pepsi, but there's no real value to it. So it's who can really blame him that he really dissed Andrew Wiggins? But to the point that he wants to get traded, pretty extreme, and especially not even at the end of last season or whatever, right before preseason, right after preseason, right before right after training camp before preseason, this guy just wants to leave. And I think when you look at the teams that he picked, it's very, the Clippers and such. He really was meticulous about he either wants to be on a team that is going to compete now or is in a big market and he's able to raise his own equitable value in himself, which is, no one can really blame him for that. So I think it was interesting that Jimmy Butler didn't he didn't put the Lakers down. I think everyone sort of had murmurs that he was going to go to the Lakers, he was going to be a free agent, and then he goes, teams up with LeBron and the Lakers boys, and right off into the sunset. But him explicitly not putting the Lakers on his list sort of entails that he doesn't want to be on the Lakers, and from certain reports they say it's because LeBron James is on the team. He doesn't want to be sort of playing second fiddle to LeBron, which is perfectly fine. Who wants to really play second fiddle to LeBron when you feel that you are one of the premier players in the league, which I agree that Jimmy Butler probably is. So, I think the whole Jimmy Butler situation in Minnesota, I think will get solved prior to the season, prior to the start of the season. I think maybe somewhere around this, not too far into the season. My guy's gonna be going to a different place, and Minnesota, they definitely want that. Like, the owner went out and said that he wants to get this trade over and done with, because he probably thinks that the Minnesota Timberwolves are contenders, which, if they don't have Jimmy Butler, and just dependent on what they get for Jimmy Butler, say he goes to the Clippers and they trade like Tobias Harris or something, or who knows what they're going to trade. I don't know if the Timberwolves, I don't think the Timberwolves are that good. Like, they have Karl-Anthony Towns, but if you listen to the podcast, especially during the NBA season, we trash on Karl-Anthony Towns because it's like, this guy's an offensive juggernaut, but then on defense he's a liability. So they really just cancel each other out. Like, he might drop 25 points a game, but then he might let in 25 points per game. So it's just null voided. So, Karl-Anthony Towns has so much potential, and then I've already mentioned Andrew Wiggins, how good he could be. So I don't know. It's hard to say, but that being said, I think that the Timberwolves really pushed. They went all in Karl-Anthony Towns, which you definitely have to, because it's Minnesota. No one wants to go to Minnesota, and not a lot of people want to stay in Minnesota. Like, it's Minnesota. No offense, I've never been to Minnesota, but what I've heard from Minnesota, it's one of those places where you're just like, yeah, it's Minnesota. So, they chucked him the 5-year, $190 million max contract, which is definitely a juicy one for Karl-Anthony Towns. So they tied up basically. They got 2 max guys on the team, and you would think at that point that's probably good enough. You would think theoretically having 2 max guys, irrespective of name, would mean that you have a contending team. But in this circumstance, you don't even know if they're like in the top 10 teams in the West. And forget that all the teams in the West have gotten better. Like, the Lakers have gotten better. Denver has gotten better, in my opinion. Just a myriad of teams have gotten better. So it'll be interesting to see, what really happens with the Timberwolves. It's sad to see, because I feel like the Timberwolves is everyone likes the Timberwolves. I think the Timberwolves are one of those teams where it's just like, no one hates on the Timberwolves. Like, everyone, so many people hate on the Lakers, Golden State. Some people hate on the Spurs. There's a lot of teams that people hate. But then you see Minnesota, and you're just like, maybe it's because they sucked for so long. Or, well, maybe they are going to suck for even longer. But how poorly they played for so many seasons, and maybe even prior to that when they had Kevin Garnett, and they were actually a good, very competitive team. I think they have a fan base, or not even a fan, they have a respect amongst the league, where they're just like, I like this team. This is like everyone's sort of second team. And I think it's good to the young guys as well. Andrew Wiggins on the surface is likable. He's got a big smile. He's got a very fun game, you could say. Same as Karl-Anthony Towns. He's a very happy, joyful person. Plus, he's like I said, offensive juggernaut, and people like offense. But on defense, very much lacking. So it'll be interesting to see the direction of Minnesota. I hope it's positive, because I do like I said, I do like Minnesota, and I feel like, especially in Australia, like I don't know about in the USA, maybe I'm just saying that they're saying that like they're everyone's second favorite team, whatever, or even in the UK. But it seems that in Australia that people like Minnesota, like that's their team. Like it's just that's the team that they picked. Obviously, there's gonna be people picking like the mainstream teams, like the Lakers and Golden State and whatnot. But like for some reason, like when I talk to people around Australia, saying what they're like, oh, I'm fan of the NBA. Like, oh, what team do you support? They always say like Minnesota, and I'm just like, wait, what? Like I remember in a kebab shop, it's like late at night, like slightly drunk as well, and I'm just eating a kebab, and I just hear behind me going like, oh yeah, dude, we just drafted Tyus Jones. We're looking to trade up, and I'm just like, wait, are you talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves? And he's just like, yeah. And I'm like, why are you a fan of the Minnesota Timberwolves? And he's like, I don't know, it's just the team I picked. And I'm like, that's odd. Like, why Minnesota? And he just couldn't give me an explanation, but yet he supports Minnesota. And somehow that's a similar story that I've had amongst so many people within Australia. So maybe that's Australia's team. Well, probably not. It was Australia's team, the Philadelphia 76ers with Ben Simmons. That's definitely Australia's team. But maybe it's Australia's second favorite team. Who knows? But, yeah. I actually, backtracking, I think I mentioned earlier about Kawhi, and he's sort of like a silent assassin and all that, but I think by the time I post this podcast, most people would have seen the video. But I think there might be a valid reason why this guy stays silent. Just let me get it up quickly. It's weird. It's weird. Here we go.
Doug Smith of the Toronto Star. Kawhi, I'm just here off to your right. A lot of people up here don't know much about you. How would you describe yourself, and what would you like people to know about you?
I'm a fun guy. Obviously, I love the game of basketball. It's just more questions you have to ask me in order for me to tell you about myself. I just can't give you a whole spiel. I don't even know where you're sitting at.
Like that laugh is wild. Like what? Like it's one of the worst laughs I've ever heard. Like if anyone listens to like the comedian Jimmy Carr, he goes, ha! Oh, I can't do the Jimmy Carr laugh, but he sounds like the Jimmy Carr where it's like he's fake laughing, but it's like, is that like a genuine laugh? And then if like anyone, you should really watch the video. You see in his face where it's just like he's uncomfortable laughing. Like you could just like facially, he's the way his nerves in his face can't like reacting to him laughing. And you're just like, wait, how was my like they can't compute him laughing. And like you could tell, like even like when he started laughing, he was like, "Oh, I don't even know how." Like he's uncoordinated in laughing, like somehow super coordinated in playing basketball, uncoordinated in laughing. Uncoordinated in laughing. Yes, I literally said that. My guy is uncoordinated in laughing, but who knows what's gonna happen in Toronto with him. I might say this later for the 30 and 10 series, but the Kawhi Leonard situation is going to be interesting to see how it plays out, especially if Toronto's doing successful, because Toronto they can do a decent amount of moves. Like Kyle Lowry, how long is he going to stay there? They got some young guys, what was it? They got OG Anunoby, they still got Valanciunas and stuff like that. So they got a lot of different pieces they can play around with and trade with and stuff, and really, mix up the team. So who knows? Maybe when I start the 30 and 10 series, the team's gonna look completely different, which I feel like is gonna happen. I guarantee you. Like I'm gonna do the series, and then out of nowhere, every team's traded one of their players, and it's just like, well, that happened. That really happened, but who knows what's gonna happen. One thing I guess it was lucky holding off a bit on the last week and doing the podcast now is get to talk about the whole Tiger Woods heroics, I guess. I don't know, it's a bit interesting. I think, for me it seemed I like how sort of it's sort of one of the stereotypical situation where the whole story has changed. Like he was completely demonized 4 or 5 years ago. He was a drug addict. He cheated on his wife. His kids. He not I wouldn't say he was a bad father, neglected his kid, but I think definitely if you're addicted to drugs and you're unfaithful to your wife to some degree, you're really putting your children in a really difficult position, let's say. And I think he even addressed that in one of his interviews where I think his kids are relatively young and most of their lifespan has existed within this situation of him being demonized or being viewed as like a notorious figure, like oh, your dad used to be your dad used to be this, your dad used to be the face of Nike, one of the faces of Nike, your dad used to be the best player in golf, your dad used to have his own video game, like he used to have all this. And it's interesting just to see how the narrative has consistently changed, especially I guess last year, he was ranked ranked 1200 or something, and now he's ranked 13th in basically a year. So to see his whole narrative change, not only him personally, but I guess how the media perceives him, it's pretty interesting. Or not even media, just how the public is receiving him, because now it's like he's sort of glorified again. I wouldn't say a hero, but I guess the face of picking yourself up and keep going and trying to make positive changes towards yourself, which is definitely a message I can get behind. And obviously everything that he did in the past is not necessarily condoned, but I think he was dealing with some difficult stuff, injuries and whatnot. But him picking himself up and being able to do what he did, especially in the Tour Championship, is definitely something magnificent and something that should be appreciated deeply. Like he was the favorite for the Masters and all that stuff. So, is Tiger back? I don't know. Is Tiger back? Is he gonna get his video again? See, I'm a young. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know anything about golf. I really couldn't care about golf at all. But that's the great thing about Tiger. That's the great thing about Tiger Woods. He transcends the sport of golf, and it could be because of his ethnicity or whatever, what have you. But he's really one of those transformative figures that transcend the sport itself. You got like Serena Williams, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, just to name a few. One of those people. There's just a rare air of people that transcend the sport and actually reach this level of pop culture or mainstream culture where they actually influence and affect a bunch of different people and stuff like that. So it was just good to see Tiger Woods win. And I think it's even me commenting on about it, it's hard to really fathom, because it's like this guy was really in abyss. Like no one could tell me, I couldn't tell you what Tiger was doing 2-3 years ago. Who knows what he was doing? I don't know what he was doing, but somehow now he's become a focal point of the sports media world, and I think that's going to continue. Tiger's that's the thing about golf, is golf is a sport that my grandpa plays, my old uncles play and stuff like that. They play golf. My friends' dads, they play golf. It's one of those sports where it's if you're old, you still excel. You have Jack oh god, what's his name? Norman. Oh god, why am I blank on Norman? Shark Norman, whatever his first name is. He is old and he's still killing it to some degree. But Tiger Woods is definitely gonna keep winning, and who knows, maybe he'll actually win all the awards to, I guess, be the actual. No, maybe not the actual king of golf, but you know what I mean. He will be the best, undebatable, because he's won all the champions. He's won the most, and he's viewed as the best. All that sort of actual tangible stuff mixed in with the intangible abilities of him. But I hope he stays on this good path. I hope he stays on this good path. So shout out to Tiger. I think he's half Asian. I'm pretty sure. He's half Lao. I'm not entirely sure, but I think he is Asian. So shout out to the man. As well, what else did I miss over the over the podcast? Oh, the whole John Jones USADA situation. John Jones and USADA, a love story that never seems to end. Oh, I guess it is ending now per se, but if no one really knows John Jones, MMA fighter, arguably he really is the Tiger Woods of MMA. Ironically enough, he is the Tiger Woods of MMA, and basically he was caught for supposedly doing drugs and whatnot. Not drugs, PEDs, so performance enhancing drugs, and basically his sanctions came out, and it's been, I think it's like 18 months, but that's retroactive. So the actual, when he actually committed the event is when the punishment starts. So technically he's already in a couple weeks he's already going to be done his 18 months and will be ready to fight. And basically everyone's saying that he's going to be fighting at the end of the year, maybe on 230, or maybe on the New Year's card. I don't know. So who knows what's going to happen? But the thing is, who's he going to fight though? Is he going to fight Gustafsson? Because Gustafsson, I don't know. We've seen that story before, and I think that's such a big fight for John Jones to come back in, especially having the big layoff that he did before. Because remember, people forget, when he had the big layoff and he versus Vince St. Preux, he didn't look that good. If DC was commentating ringside, and you could even tell when DC was commentating, going geez, I could have really taken this guy on, and I could have beaten him. But he actually really needed that warm-up fight against Ovin St. Preux, and St. Preux broke his arm or something in that fight. So all the for John, I don't think John Jones finished. Did he finish him? I'm not entirely sure, but for John Jones to not put out one of his vintage performance against Ovin St. Preux, a guy that's not really known, and then on top of that he got injured in the cage, he should have done better. But I think that's sort of a blessing in disguise for the UFC, especially with the whole Brock Lesnar situation playing out, because who knows if Brock Lesnar is going to be legal to fight, especially on the USADA and the whole controversy that he's had with the PEDs and stuff. So it would be good, it'll actually be good to see DC versus John Jones, in my opinion, especially at heavyweight, because it would be, think about it, both of them not cutting weight, them at their absolute peak strength, is going to be ridiculous. So I hope they fight, but I don't think John Jones is going to jump straight into it. People were saying Stipe, John Jones versus Stipe, but jeez, that's a dangerous fight as well. Even though John Jones, I think, is bigger than Stipe probably, or at least in the height, he's definitely taller than Stipe, and his reach is definitely bigger than Stipe's, but probably weight-wise, of course, not as big. But that would be an interesting fight. I just think John Jones, you just need to ease him in. You need to ease him, because he's still young. He's 31, 32 maybe. You got to ease him in and let him be, let him chill, let him relax. Like I said, he's still got a lot of miles to go, and in my opinion, he's still one of, if not the greatest fighters. So you just got to let him be and all that stuff. But I guess continue with the UFC. Obviously, how many days? 10? Is it 10 days or something? No. 12 days. In 12 days, at least in my time, 12 days in Australia, the biggest fight arguably in UFC history is going to occur. Conor vs. Khabib, which is going to be ridiculous. It's honestly the perfect matchup. Striker versus grappler. Shit talker versus very melodic and very, straight to the point guy, straight shooter. But, obviously we got to see the first iteration of them together in a more intimate setting, which was a press conference. And I don't know, my opinions on the press conference is very mixed. It was weird. It was different. It was different to most other press conferences. Obviously, Conor's a bit more playful, a bit more jovial per se, and obviously, Khabib's going to be Khabib. He's not really going to give you much. He's going to be a straight shooter. He's going to tell you that you're shit if you're shit. He's going to say if he respects you, if he respects you. He's a very much straight shooter. So it was weird to see the dynamic play out because both of them were sort of out of character. Like words. I got this clip of. Let me get it out. This clip of Conor McGregor at the press conference. Here we go.
Came back for the love of this, to come and shut this man up. A little rat, a little weasel, a little hard man in groups. I've met many of them through my years. A man who grows in numbers, but on his own, and when confronted in a similar situation, cowers away. And that's what you saw with that little on the bus over there. He his jocks after doing something to his own countryman that had nothing got to do with anything. And that's it. I came back for the love of fighting and the love of war. And this I am going to truly, truly love, putting a bad beating on this little glass jaw rat.
You know, Conor McGregor, like I said, is more playful, more driven. Obviously, he's shit talking for the second to none. Like, he goes in, he's just a mastermind. Even a damn near prodigy, you could say, when he talks shit. But you could tell there's some deep emotional hatred towards a fight. And I think if you listen to a lot of fighters talk, I swear every fighter has a podcast now, but like, just listen to any fighter and they talk about when you make the fight too emotional, you get into your head too much, and then you don't think strategically, you think emotionally, so it'd just be interesting to see how Conor reacts. And then obviously Khabib as well. I don't have a clip for Khabib, but Khabib he was a bit emotional as well. Like, both of them were really emotional, and I think Conor was the one that was trying to play it off a bit more. He was sort of, talking about his, new whiskey line, Proper Whiskey. Shout out to Proper Whiskey, I guess. Not a sponsor of the podcast, but just shout out to that brand. But, Conor McGregor definitely was, just being a bit, like, it's not it's just like his shit talking was just not there. And then Khabib was like trying to shit talk as well, go hard, but then it's like, that's not really Khabib either. So, obviously all things are gonna go when the fight happens. I think I'm getting a couple of the boys come around and we're gonna watch the fights and stuff. Who knows? We might do a little podcast or something. I don't know. I'm entirely sure. I don't want to guarantee that at all. But like I said, it's gonna be an interesting fight. I hope it's of course it has. That's the beauty about this fight as well. No matter what, it will be a good fight, because Khabib's either, like, it's not going to be a stalemate type of fight. It's either Khabib's going to get him to the ground and torture him for 3, 4, 5 rounds, or Conor's just going to knock Khabib out, like a flash in the pan knockout, where it's just like, whoa, what just happened? Like, the guy just got destroyed, sort of thing. So it's really a win-win for both consumers. Like, it's not like some other fights where it's just like it's all hyped up to be something good. Like, what was one of those fights? Actually, I don't know. Most of the Conor's fights are always really good and spectacular. So, he'll come out. Khabib's had some bit more lackadaisical ones, but that's just because he's always been eyeing for the belt, and now since he's got the belt now, I think it's gonna be a different story. So, it's gonna be a really big UFC event, and I'm pretty pumped. I don't know if you can tell the enthusiasm, but I can definitely tell you right now, I am super pumped for the fight. So, let's see how that goes. I guess continuing on fighting, there was that big announcement. Well, it wasn't really that big. I don't think anyone cared. Like, I don't think anyone care. I care a lot because it's my man's, but I don't think a lot of people care. Apparently, it's been reported, there's a whole video about it. Floyd and Manny Pacquiao have agreed to fight again. I think they wanted to fight at the end of this year, but who knows when it's actually going to fight. But, like I said, not many people were receptive to the fight. I think a lot of people are scarred from the first fight, $100 pay-per-view. And it turns out it wasn't a terrible fight, but it's like, it's not what people expected. And I think you could say maybe it was the brilliance of Floyd. As a Filipino, I'm going to say it was because Manny Pacquiao was injured. But, what more can these guys like do? And maybe Floyd could go there and, you know, bang out or whatever, but it's one of those fights. It's not like going to be a Canelo and Triple G fight where it was non-stop action and irrespective of the result, controversial, you know, some say. It was definitely one of the better fights that we've seen in boxing so far. And, you know, it's not going to be like a heavyweight fight that Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury is going to be, or even potentially Deontay Wilder and, you know, Anthony Joshua or anything like that, you know, like, or even it's not going to be big as fighters like Mikey Garcia versus Lomachenko. Like, there's so many other fights that are better than that fight, and I think even still it's going to do big numbers. Probably not the numbers that they did for the first fight, but it's going to be a really good fight. So, I hope it's a good fight, you know, because at least Manny Pacquiao knocked out a dude his last fight, so he's definitely still going hard. And Floyd, you know, is Floyd, so he's gonna do what he's gonna do. I think a lot of people are scarred from the first. Like, honestly, like, it was one of the worst things that could have happened to boxing. Like, boxing has been able to bounce back pretty nicely ever since that last pay-per-view. It was like the two best fighters of this, you know, since the 2000s. Two of the best fighters, and basically they put off one of the most stinker of a performances, both of them, you know, that's happened in boxing in a while. And I think it like it's really scarred a lot of people. And I think, you know, some fans moved to MMA, or some fans just stopped watching boxing at all. So, you know, we'll see what happens. Like I said, I hope Pacquiao better come with no excuses. You know, how it's like, oh, you know, my shoulder's bum or whatever. Because when I was watching the fight, I'm a proud Filipino, but even to that degree, I'm not gonna say that Pacquiao, yeah, he maybe did have an injured shoulder, but he wasn't fighting like he had an injured shoulder. He was throwing hands really well. He was really putting a lot behind his behind his straight. Like, I don't know, man. Like, it was poor on him to use an excuse. But that being said, he's knocking out opponents still. So we'll see what happens with him though. So yeah. I think I might end the podcast here. I think. Sorry if the podcast is been a bit more sort of drowsy. It's a bit more drowsy than usual. But definitely, I think I've recorded some of the 30-10, so I think I've sort of podcasted myself out a bit. But like I said, definitely keep an eye out for the 30 and 10 series that's going to be coming. It'll literally be 10 days before the start of the NBA season, so you have a great amount of content to listen to prep yourself for the upcoming NBA season. Like I said, I'll try and get some people on. If anyone listening has, you know, wants to come onto the podcast or wants to get interviewed or whatever and talk about their team, I'm more than happy to try and accommodate that situation. So email me or tweet me or whatever to see if you want to get on the podcast and talk about, you know, your team and how you find their chances coming up. But that being said, what else? Yeah, as well, I should have mentioned this at the top of the podcast, but I'm probably going to be backpacking Asia in about just over a month's time. So there's going to be some great, interesting stuff happening with the podcast as well, coming to that point. So definitely, there will definitely be more announcements coming in the future. But just know that in addition to the NBA stuff that's going to be happening, obviously once the season progresses, there's going to be some more different and more interesting and more intriguing stuff that's going to be coming to this show and coming to this podcast as well. But sorry if I'll admit right now, sorry if this wasn't one of the better podcasts. I will admit this is probably one of the more drowsier ones I've had done in the past. I think it's just because there's just so much to talk about, and it's like, you know, when there's so much to talk about and your mind just gets jumbled or whatnot, you're just like, jeez, like, I can't keep up or whatever. But like I said, besides that, I think we're all good to go. Bye.